Cultural identity. The last dimension that we are suggesting across which bilingualism can be measured is cultural identity. Now, this can be at individual level and this can also be at society level. So, we are saying that how does language and culture intertwine, and if they intertwine or they are linked with each other and you somehow know more than one languages, then whose culture do you identify with? Now there is a term that is used in this context which we call biculturalism. So biculturalism would mean that you are adept with or you somehow identify with both cultures. So you positively feel being a part of it, and not only that you feel you are a part of that culture, but others also from the community of those 2 languages or 3 languages also accept you as a member of that community. Then this we would call biculturalism. And this will be both at social level and at affective level, that is emotional level. So you really feel that you are a part of it and you can easily communicate or interact with the community members who accept you as one of their own. Now, it is argued that when there is additive bilingualism, when languages have a similar status, then usually people are bicultural. They don't feel any shame in their own culture and they have no problem in identifying with the other culture. Similarly, the people of that community or the native speakers of that community also readily accept you as a part of their community because they also accept languages without any concerns for language status or shame or humiliation, those things that we encounter in subtractive bilingualism or when languages are not valued at the same level. So additive bilingualism would lead to biculturalism. That this is an assumption. This would also lead to balanced bilingualism. So more often than not, in such a society, you will have people who are very good in or competent in both languages, more than one languages, and they're equally competent. However, this might vary. So there is a possibility that people are different, and in biculturalism also they might give more importance to some languages rather than the other. So if biculturalism varies, that means biculturalism can coexist with varying degrees of dominant bilingualism. So it's a possibility that some of the languages might be more dominant, that is, some of the languages are either preferred for use by the individuals or some of the languages might be more easy for the individual to use because he or she is more proficient in that language. In that case, biculturalism can still coexist with varying degrees. So there might be a degree change, but the person might still be a bicultural. So a fluent bilingual in one language, we will say, can remain monocultural. So it is also argued a way of this, another context of this variation is that you have this person knows both languages and he or she might even be a balanced bilingual. However, that person is more affiliated in terms of culture to one language rather than the other language. And more often than not, it is usually the first language. However, it is possible that once you learn the second language and you feel that you are a balanced bilingual and you are accepted by the other community, you might renounce your mother tongue and your mother culture, and you become what we call in this bilingualism a term L2 acculturated. L2 acculturated would mean that although you know two languages, but somehow after learning the second language, you have moved away or shifted away from your mother tongue and moved into the culture of the second language. And then this remains a monocultural. We have this instance of this monocultural with high bilinguality. So he or she would be adept in Urdu and English, but somehow the person would identify with the second language culture more. So monocultural but bilingual. There are different outcomes of bilingualism, as we have said. So we may have a case in which one's culture is given up, but that person is not able to identify with L2 culture. So the person knows both languages. Now this person wants to sort of like move or shift to second language, culture also. And in that attempt, that person has renounced one's own culture, but that person has not been fully able to identify with the second culture. In that case, that person might be said to be deculturated. That is, deculturated would mean that person is going through a stage of anomie, or that person is anomic. That is, that person can't possibly place himself or herself as a part of one culture or the other. The first culture he or she has renounced, would not like to be a part of it, and the second culture that the person wants to move in somehow does not identify with fully. So, regarding bilinguality and language use, we can say use of more than one language is always multidimensional. So when you learn a language, you definitely learn aspects of the culture of that language. And when we talk about bilingualism, biculturalism, or being a monocultural, these parts are a natural part of the discussion of bilinguality. And then the question also comes about minimal competence. So maybe we had this discussion before, and at this stage we should say that anyone we call a bilingual should have at least minimal competence in more than one languages. And even if we would not like to use the word dominant language, we can say preferred language. That is, which are the preferred languages that are used by the individual, and the dominant language, if you would still like to use the word, would be the language which is used for higher functions. That would be the dominant language.